Well, if you've ever built in the past, you've probably heard the term from your builder, well, we can do that, but that's a change order. What does that mean?
Well, it means you've agreed to do one thing and now you're asking for something different. And I think there's two parts of that. I mean, it's one thing if you're asking for something different and you know you're asking for something different. There's oftentimes it's not that. It's what you thought you were supposed to get in the first place. And now you finally come to the realization that after all the fun and gleeful excitement of signing that contract, you didn't read it too close. And what you're now finding out is what you thought you were getting, all these pretty Pinterest pictures you showed the builder, that's not actually
not in there.
That's not in there. Mm-hmm. And so now what you want is a change, and you're probably infuriated about it because not only are you going to have to spend more money on something that you thought you were already getting, but it's probably worse because your buying power has been eroded because now not only are you going to spend more money, you're going to add change fees to that.
Now, Epic has change fees.
Yes.
But I think they're reasonable because they're similar in structure to what your regular margin is on your regular house.
That's
but
right.
That's not always the case.
No, in some cases, some of the system builders, they kind of keep a flat number. They may have a $300 change order fee, and then they have a 33% margin on the change itself. So it could get pretty expensive.
But you know what? That's almost understandable with system builders
Yes.
because the way they're keeping their price low is they got to line up all their dominoes and hit go. And if there's any disruption in that, it throws their whole system off.
It's catastrophic.
But for custom builders, it doesn't seem like it should be that way.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it shouldn't. I mean, custom builders are not going to build as many houses in a year. There's probably going to be a higher level person on the job site or responsible for overseeing the job. Like in our business, it's you and me. We are the leads. We don't entrust superintendents and other personnel to do that. It's us. And so we are decision makers. We have the ability to say, that's messed up. Epic is going to write a check to fix that. I mean, we can make those calls. And I also think because we're involved, I mean, we also can anticipate and avoid and try to make sure the customer's money is spent as good as possible so that when a change does happen, hopefully it's not that disruptive because we've already planned for a certain amount of it. Our vendors have planned for a certain amount of it. We are custom builders.
So what are you talking about margin? What is it? What is a typical excessive margin that you
I
see?
think when it depends on what it is because if you do something that's only $100, a trip could cost a builder more than $100. So if a builder charged you $100 on top of that $100,
that's reasonable.
That's pretty reasonable, even though that would be a 100% margin. That's reasonable because it's really about their time. But if they go and they do something that's simply a phone call, and all of a sudden they're making $1,000 on that phone call, that seems pretty outrageous. And so it just kind of depends on what you're specifically talking about. But I would say that when you start to see people making 30, 40, 50% margin percentages on something and charging you a change order fee on top of that, that's pretty penalizing. And that's where I think some of the builders really go too far.
Because I do think that on custom buildings, we expect a little bobbing and weaving because typically you're building something that hasn't ever been built before.
Right, and you need to work with vendors that can absorb that they know that some of that's going to happen, and some vendors get very flustered by that, and some builders who try to walk the line between custom and kind of like track home builders, they have real difficulty with the term change, and those are the guys that really tend to hit you the hardest.
So we're going to treat you fair. We're going to let you know what something costs before we actually do it, and we're going to try to stay in front of the game a little bit more than what you would probably typically see in home building. So we don't even have to discuss the word change order. That is our goal. Our goal is to have the pre-planning out ahead of this thing to where everything's kind of lined up to where we can go from one phase to the other without having to do a change order.